To the World's Preview Show. Jat and I are hanging out here next to the iconic Taipei 101 Tower in the crazy busy streets of Taiwan, getting ready to kick off the 2014 World Championship.
Yeah, and just 10 minutes down the road is Taiwan's NTU Sports Center, which the first two groups of worlds are going to be playing there on Thursday to fight towards the Summer's Cup.
That's right, so with all that action coming your way, don't touch that browser. The World's Preview Show starts right now.
Everything on the line now. Pressure to go to Worlds.
You're headed to the World Championship.
Hello and welcome to the World's Preview Show. I am Trevor Quickshot Henry, joined by David Freak Turley, along with a veritable all-star assembly of experts, starting with Mitch Krepo Forgeballs, Yeliang DoubleLift Peng, and Christopher MonteCristo Michaels.
So straight to business, guys. Today we're going to be taking a look at the first group stage of the 2014 World Championship. Kicks off Thursday in Taipei as teams from groups A and B will compete for a shot in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and just a heads up, be sure to stay tuned through the entire World's Preview Show today, because we are very excited to debut a brand new song from Imagine Dragons that was created specifically for Worlds.
Miss the premiere of Riot's incredible new World Championship video, Warriors. Now, I imagine you don't want to be anywhere else.
Yeah, well, let's not drag on this introduction, because there are 4 weeks of action heading your way as part of the 2014 World Championship. So let's actually take a look at the schedule. Of course, we'll be starting things off in Taipei with groups A and B, and those matches will kick off on September 18th at 5 p.m. local time, which is 11 a.m. Central European Summer Time and 2 a.m. Pacific, or roughly 12 hours from now.
So check your watches, guys, and after that first week of games, the World Championship will head to Singapore for the second part of the group stage, where teams from groups C and D will be hitting the Rift beginning September 25th. Now, after that, it's off to Busan, Korea for the quarterfinals, as the 8 teams who survive the group stage will compete in best of fives beginning October 3rd.
Yeah, then the final 4 teams will make the trip to Seoul, Korea for the semifinals. There, the 2 best of 5 matchups will be held on October 11th and 12th at the Olympic Gymnastics Arena.
And that all leads up to the 2014 League of Legends World Championship Finals, as the 2 best teams take the stage in the Songam Stadium for a shot of the Summoners Cup and the title of Best Team in the World.
The 2014 World Championship will be played on the 4.14 patch with NAR enabled. But since it's been almost a month since us non-pros have played on that patch, we brought in Black Anola to help us take a look back at some of the major details with special Worlds version of the TLDR patch notes.
Patch notes. TLDR, League of Legends patch 4.14, up in this World's Preview Show. Nar, the missing link, is now available for play. He'll tag you at range and lock you and your team up in 3 years of crowd control when he transforms. Will they rename the World Finals the Chronicles of Narnia? Only time and maybe Freak will tell. Assassins have seen a rise back to the LCS. Our favorite floating purple rift-walking mage assassin needed to be toned back a bit. It'll take longer for the damage and mana cost of Riftwalk to reset. Oh, Kog'Maw, you're quite possibly the deadliest marksman. I guess it doesn't really matter what your target builds when you can melt it like a hot knife through butter. Name probably knows this best. Riot's lowered his base move speed and lowered the damage on his ultimate. Maokai is the new top lane terror. I'm all about diversity, but the Mighty Oak does too much damage and offers too much utility. The base power on Twisted Advance is going down, and his ult has a max up time of 10 seconds per activation. While everyone's trying to get at least a gold to get Victorious Morgana, regular old Morgana's power in the bot lane can't be ignored, and so the base shield on Black Shield and the damage on Soul Shackles are going down. I honestly can't believe some people were saying it was Zyra. Come on. Orianna got her base AD lowered by 6 points. I can only imagine one of the balance team members going, yeah, that'll show that ball-loving robot. You take that nerf. Just how will Guang or Xpeke ever cope? Anyways, this shouldn't take away much from the most balanced mage in the game. Rengar has a higher cooldown on his ult early level, and the warning indicator range is larger, but it won't stop players like Dandy from clawing your carry's face off. Finally, Zed, because Z's at the end of the alphabet. Now when he uses Deathmark, It'll place Zed behind the target rather than in front, all while getting the ability to move through units, just like true ninjas should. I'm sure this makes Bjergsen, Westor, Dade, and Hai very happy. Everything else in these notes doesn't matter. This is TLDR Patch Notes Worlds 4.14. I'll see you next patch. The chase for the cup begins. Oh baby.
Yes!
Now that we got the dates locked in and the patch notes covered, it is time to take a look at the teams in Group A. But first, just because Group A simply isn't exciting enough a name for the preview show, it's time to reveal our favorite nicknames that you guys, the fans, have sent to us.
Yeah, you guys have sent a lot in, and while most of them were iterations of two teams being good and two teams being less good, with varying degrees of profanity, cruelty, and even intelligence, there were several that actually made us laugh. And I'm looking at you, Thanksgiving group.
The one that felt the safest to air for both legal and moral reasons was actually the Davids and Goliaths. And we like that one as well. And we want to thank E or something for being the first one to send that in to us.
And you know, Trevor, I actually did beat Goliath in that matchup, so of course anything can happen in this group. Monty, actually, you were also quite vocal on Twitter about the name for this group. You called it Resident Sleeper. Want to chime in on why?
Yeah, I named all of the groups after Twitch emoticons, and this group, we have two obvious favorites here. It's probably going to be the most boring group, and hey man, he's asleep. Doesn't need to watch.
Well, let's take a look at those teams over in Group A, starting with the number 1 seed from China's LPL. It is Edward Gaming. Next up is the number 2 seed from Korea's The Champions, Samsung White.
The next team in this group is the number 2 team from the GPL, AHQ Esports Club. And the final team is going to be one of the international wildcard teams, Turkey's Dark Passage.
Well, let's actually take a closer look at those teams, starting with Turkey's Dark Passage. Dark Passage has been the most dominant team in Turkey for the last 2 straight years. They won the winter, spring, and summer seasons, as well as the Turkish Grand Finals in 2013 and 2014.
They competed in the International Wildcard Tournament last year, but lost out in the semifinals. But this year, they've returned and have dominated their opponents, bringing their first ever World Championship trip for a Turkish team. So let's take a look now at their starting lineup. In the mid lane is Naru, in the jungle is Crystal, supporting is Touch, AD carry is Holy Phoenix, and the top laner is Fabulous.
Yeah, and I've actually had the pleasure of shoutcasting Dark Passage both last year and this year, and there's been a noticeable improvement. The first person who stands up for me is their mid laner, Naru. He has definitely grown from last year to this. He's got a phenomenal KDA of 7.3 in both the Turkish Grand Finals and including the 2014 World Championship, International Wildcard rather, where he really impressed me with his champion pool. You know, playing at Gamescom under the lights on the stage, he played 7 different champions in 8 games, and he really excelled in his role. Secondary to that, Holy Phoenix has joined the team in the AD carry. He was too young last year as he was not 17. Now that he has come of age, he joined in the squad and he destroyed at Gamescom. Krepo, I want to ask you, what's your take on Holy Phoenix and Dark Passage as a whole?
Yeah, I think Holy Phoenix is definitely one of the better, if not the best AD carry in his region. But unfortunately for him, this tournament is going to be so stacked AD-wise that it's going to be so hard for him to even come close to the level of his opposition. All the other AD carries in his group are just really good at what they do. So while he's very strong, I'm just really worried to how well he can perform. However, he had a good season, had good KDAs, had a good performance, and even had a pentakill on Tristana. Maybe he's dreaming for another one, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, we'll have to see. Maybe you can repeat that success. All right, guys, let's turn our focus onto GPL's AHQ Esports Club. AHQ have been one of the top 2 teams in the GPL over the last 2 years. And last season, they were actually the favorites to make it to the World Championship, but they were upset by the Germania Bears.
It's kind of been the story for AHQ is they're always almost there, but the losses have kind of continually fired AHQ up in GPL's regional finals this year. They swept the Saigon Fantastic 5-3-0 and finally grabbed that number 2 seed and went to the World Championship. Now we're going to take a look at their starting roster. Their AD carry is Garnet Devil, in the top lane is Prize, in the mid lane their star player is West Door, in the jungle is Nas, and supporting is Green Tea. Now again, the player that stands out to me is that mid laner West Door. He is definitely the best mid laner in the region, and this is again a region that has bred players like toys. This is a player that a lot of us still remember from the Season 2 World Championship. This guy is a phenomenal assassin player. His Fizz, his Zed, his Yasuo are great. And if they're going to win, it's going to be on his back.
And I just want to chime in because Westor and Nas are just the playmakers of that team. If there's a fight that breaks out top lane 1v1 or bottom lane 2v2, they're always the first ones to respond. They're always looking to make plays, get picks, and carry the team. They're just the most active members of HQ.
I'm glad you mentioned the bottom lane. What's your take on Garnet Devil? I mean, ADC, what do you think?
Yeah, so when I watch him, I would compare him to the likes of Cop. He's very consistent. His positioning is good. He's not a playmaking like AD carry per se, but he's very focused on just positioning, hyper carry, get to late game, and just do his job. He's not standout in any way, but he definitely is the top AD carry in his region, in my opinion.
Well, 12-0 Jinx. He definitely makes it to the late game, that's for sure. All right, next up, it is going to be Samsung White. That's coming from Korea. This team is making it back to Worlds after failing to make it out of the groups last year, where they played at Samsung Ozone. Samsung White have admitted to being overconfident last year, and they tasted the bitterness of defeat. It is weighing heavily on their minds, as we heard in the Road to Worlds documentary.
Sure, but they're of course not going to let that defeat hold them back. They've earned enough circuit points to force a tiebreaker against SK Telecom T1K for the second spot from Korea. That's where they defeated the defending world champions 3-0. So a very good road for them so far. And we're going to take a look now at their starting players. In the jungle is Dandy, one of the best junglers in the world. AD carry is Imp, supporting is Mata. In the mid laner is Pawn, and the top laner is Looper. Now, the only difference for this squad from the last year's sort of failed squad at Worlds is a swap in the mid lane. Pawn is now playing in place of Dade, and I think it's for the better.
Yeah, I think so. Dade struggled last year. I'm looking forward to seeing Pawn play. But truthfully, we have to ask the conductor for his opinion on Samsung White. Talk to me about some of the players, Monty.
Well, you know, for Samsung White, I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of the Samsung organization, and either team is going to probably win this World Championship. But if I had to bet on one, I'd bet on White. And the reason is, even though, you know, they haven't kind of had that seminal performance where they actually beat Blue in a best of 5, I think the time is now. And Dandy's going to be right up there with it. Dandy, I think, is the best jungler in the world right now, and he is head and shoulders above pretty much any other jungler in this tournament. It's his jungle pathing, his control of vision with Mata, his ability to play Rengar even after the nerfs makes him very, very dangerous on certain assassin champions, and he's a playmaker. You know, he can go in there, he can lead his team in, and this guy is just extraordinary. We call him the Prince of Thieves. He always steals objectives. Really well-rounded player.
I want to know your thoughts on Imp. I'm personally excited to see him play. What's your take?
Imp's a very good player. A lot of the time, what Samsung White will do is play pick compositions. Imp will typically play a champion like Twitch in that situation. He's one of the first in, usually. He's not like Name, another AD carry in this group who's more positional. He's there in the front line.
The best thing about Imp, though, that he has the privilege to play with Mata, and that makes their bot lane just even better. That's arguably the best support, if not one of the best supports in the world. I'm just looking forward to see them play.
And finally, let's check out China's Edward Gaming. Just half a year ago, this team has gone from not existing at all to being one of the best squads in the world. They were assembled by combining the top players from teams like World Elite and Positive Energy and molding them into this unstoppable powerhouse.
And a powerhouse they are. They stormed through the spring and summer playoffs both, taking first place the entire year. They also only lost a single game the entire route through the summer playoffs. And so with 2 first-place finishes and then winning the Chinese regionals, they are the #1 Chinese seed for Worlds. Let's take a look now at their starting lineup. Their AD carry, their star player is Name, formerly known as Devil if you think about him from a while back. Their top laner is Koro1. Their jungler is Clearlove. Their mid laner is Unstoppable. In this tournament, he'll be known as just the letter U. And their support player is FZZF.
Well, now, DoubleLift, I know that you keep in touch with the Chinese scene and Chinese AD carries in particular. So what's your opinion on Name?
I mean, this guy's just amazing. He's definitely my pick for just someone to watch in Group A. I mean, he's 3-time champion. He's just incredible. He's so consistent. I've never seen him lose lane. When I watch EDG play, this guy never, ever, ever loses lane. The only time that he actually dies in the first 10 minutes is when the enemy team, like, 4v2 dives bottom lane. So it's just something completely out of his control. He's super consistent. His positioning is incredible. But the thing to note about him, he's really unique. He doesn't make plays. He is just very, very consistent. He doesn't dive in 1v5. His positioning is pretty much always perfect.
Yeah, I agree there. He's just a very smart player. One game, for example, he made an adaptation where as Twitch, he would just gank level 1 mid and just basically win that mid lane for you, go down to the bottom lane because they were playing in a lane swap anyways. He recognized that he had that 30-second window where he actually did not need to be bottom lane immediately, and he took advantage of that and basically won mid lane for his mid laner.
One thing that is going to be a little concerning, though, is the fact that I think a lot of this tournament is going to be on his shoulders. And if he's not willing to take risks and abuse the fact that he'll be winning the bot lane consistently, it's going to be a little bit of a hard road for EDG with teams of incredible players in every lane.
Yeah, very briefly, let's talk about Yu, unstoppable in the mid. I feel like he's overshadowed by some of the other Chinese mid laners. DoubleLift, care to share your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Yu's not the strongest mid in China by any means, but what he is known for is his diversity. He can play pretty much everything. The thing that kind of strikes me as negative about him is people will sometimes play niche stuff against him, such as Jace mid, and he'll just go on crazy feeding sprees. He'll just die constantly in lane. So he might not be the best laner, but he's exactly what the team needs. He's super versatile, and he'll pick for the team comp.
Well, now that we've looked at the 4 teams in Group A, let's go look through our telescope over to the telestrator, as MonteCristo is actually going to take us into the laning phase.
Thank you, QuickShot. If we take a look at this group on Summoner's Rift under a sweeping lens, one lane stands out above the others. And that's where I expect the make or break performances that will see a team advance or falter here in the group stages. For Group A, I think those battles will take place in the bot lane and specifically with the AD carries. So we're going to do a quick rundown of the 4 ADCs competing in Group A and exactly what makes them tick. Starting off, Samsung White. There's Imp. Also known as one of the best ADCs in the world, he has insane mechanics and believed to have one of the strongest laning phases of any ADC. Following up, Edward Gaming, it's Name. He is known as one of the best positional ADCs in the world, extremely intelligent, and picks heavy scaling champs for the late game carry. AHQ Esports Club, Garnet Devil. One of the best in the region, and he had amazing performances with huge KDAs in the recent GPL season and the regional finals. And finally, Dark Passage is Holy Phoenix. He's undoubtedly the best ADC in all of Turkey. He carried his team during the international wildcard tournament with a pentakill. Now, if we start to rank the ADCs in this group, I think it'd probably stack up a little bit like this. Number 4, Holy Phoenix. Unfortunately for him, he's going up against the 3 ADCs that are among the best in their respective regions. These regions are much bigger, and moreover, our top 2 are probably top 3 in the world. Following up, number 3, Garnet Devil. Like Holy Phoenix, he is one of the best in his region, but he will be facing Name and Imp, and these are regions with a lot heavier competition. Number 2, may surprise some of you, I'm actually going to say Imp here. Imp does bring great mechanics to matches. He has a very strong laning phase, and he's paired with Mata, which you really can't underestimate, but he can get cocky and make some mistakes in the late game because he's more of that playmaking style. You want to look for consistency. It's my number 1. It's Name here. It's really close between Imp and Name. They have very different play styles. But I believe that Name just edges Imp out due to his stronger late game and his consistently good decision making and his emphasis on team fights. Regardless, it'll definitely be interesting to see these 2 duke it out with their very different styles. So there you have it for the laning phase for Group A. QuickShot, back to you.
Thank you very much, Monty. Jat actually took some time out of his schedule to catch up with one of those OP AD carries over in Taipei. So let's send it over to him and see what Edward Gaming's Name has to say.
Hey everybody, I am here with Name from EDG to talk a little bit about the World Championship. And you have actually won 3 straight splits in the LPL. How have you been able to do that?
主要是因为我觉得我上了赛场之后，我就觉得我能赢他们吧，差不多也相当于是自信和就是我觉得只要我不导致我打得很差，不会崩盘，我就导致我会赢得这场比赛，自己就有信心很足那种。
It's interesting, where does that confidence come from? Because you've been so dominant as an AD carry for so long, but where do you draw all of your confidence?
这种东西有在日常交手中，就是与交手过很多次，也不是属于那种陌生的对手，打起来的话，就是不会不知道对方体系，所以说就知道该怎么玩能赢。
And now you guys actually move on to the world stage, where you get to play AD carries from all regions. How do you think you'll stack up against those players since you haven't played them before?
我也有事先看过一些国内外的比赛，就是事先了解他们比较想交手的。我感觉每个队的每个地区的种子队都是我非常想交手的队伍。
And after watching all the other AD carries, how do you think you stack up against them?
这种事情要上了舞台之后才能决定吧。就是当你打起来和你在台下观看完全就是不一样了。你交起手来，你才知道一个人的真正实力有多少。
And of all the AD carries you've watched, who are you most looking forward to playing against, or who do you want to face the most?
应该是韩国的Imp。
Why Imp?
因为那个人在线上的个人实力很强，以及操作感都是让我觉得我非常想要战胜他。
You want to play against Imp. Are there any teams in particular you want to play against?
比较想交手的队伍应该也是韩国的三星蓝白队，还有欧洲的 Fnatic，以及北美的 TSM。
And last question for you. OMG and Royal Club both had a lot of success last year at Worlds. OMG in the group stages and Royal Club making it all the way to the finals. Yet your team, Edward Gaming, has beaten them consistently in the LPL. How do you think that helps you as a team going towards the World Championship this year?
跟 OMG 还有皇族这种战队交手，说实话，他们的实力也是真的是非常强，赢了他们也不会取得那么轻松。就是让我们在了解一个队伍的实力上限，就是相当于征服了他们。如果他们征服了队伍之后，我们有更大的信心去战胜对手吧。所以去年就是13年 S3的时候，皇族的成绩确实非常好，希望我们在今年能够超越他们。
Well, thank you for that, Jet, and thank you even more to Name for taking the time out to chat to us.
Yeah, and I just wanted to expand on something earlier because I'm really excited about Name. It can't be understated. This is a guy who's coming into Worlds with 3 consecutive championships in his region on 2 different teams. For me, this is the best player in the world that we have never seen at an international competition, and I am so excited.
Well, after that introduction, Monty, it's time for the table. Well, you around the table to tell me who your number 1 and number 2 teams are. You're going to make it out of groups into quarterfinals, and I know you're going to put Edward Gaming first. So come on,
you know
1
me
and
so
2.
well. No. It's gonna be Samsung White. This is a team that, as good as Name is, Imp is still right up there at the top of the elite carries in the world, and they're just better players at all the other positions effectively. Now, my one concern with EDG being number 2, Samsung White has had a tendency to lose to a team that has a very similar style to EDG, their sister team, Samsung Blue, that's reliant on a very positional AD carry, an AoE, big-time AoE mid, and a lot of team fighting. Of course, AHQ probably 3rd, Dark Passage probably 4th. This is the David and Goliath group. I don't think they stand much of a chance.
We'll see if it works out. Had some faith in Westor earlier. What's your opinion and predictions for this group, DoubleLift?
Well, I have to agree with Monte, even though I don't really want to, because the Korean team is definitely going to make it out. Samsung White, absolutely the best team in this group. And EDG, just a little bit under them. Honestly, I think Name edges out Imp a little bit, but in all other roles, in all 4 other roles, Samsung White just has slightly better players, if not like drastically better players.
Westor and Garnet Devil, not even a glimpse, maybe?
I don't see a glimpse of hope for them. I see a glimpse of hope for AHQ to potentially take 1 game off of these guys.
Well, we'll see. Next prediction, Krepo, 1 and 2. Are you going with the trend?
Yeah, I'm definitely putting White first, EDG second, and I do agree with DoubleLift. AHQ might be able to take a game off EDG just because their vision control isn't really good, their pre-planning isn't really good. They these 5v5 brawl fests that's so typical for the Chinese scene actually happen because they don't plan ahead very well. They don't push out their side lanes very well, or they don't have the best vision control. Compare that to White. They have Mata just controlling the game on his own in terms of vision. So, and I agree as well, role for role, the Koreans are just better in this matchup.
Freak, I've got to roll this one on to you.
Yep.
EDG, the one Chinese team at Worlds that I feel doesn't play that stereotypical team fight way. I think they can if they want to.
Right.
1 or 2, or is a surprise like AHQ going to make your 1 and 2?
So I can't give any more facts than what you guys have already said. I agree. The number 1 is Samsung White. Number 2 is Edward Gaming. Number 3 is AHQ, and I think they are a dark horse that can make a run here. Specifically because I think they are very strong, and Westor can just hard carry here. And with Edward, there's the chance that Name just doesn't perform internationally. There's the chance that it doesn't quite click for EDG, and there's the upside AHQ goes through instead. It's unlikely, but I think that is on the table.
And don't forget, Samsung White or Samsung Ozen last year choked in groups. Sure. Now, this is normally where we would turn to you out there and ask for your favorites. And of course, you still can share those with us. But today we'd like to do something just a little bit different. It is time for the 2014 World Championship preview show, Mad Libs. For those of you unfamiliar with Mad Libs, it works like this. We ask you for different types of words, like a noun, a verb, or an adjective. I had to look them up too. And we'll plug them into a predetermined sentence, often with hilarious results. For instance, I'll ask the guys here on the desk for some words, starting with Krepo. Give me the name of a player from Group A.
Imp.
Imp it is. DoubleLift, can you give me an adjective, if you would?
Kawaii.
Okay, so imp, kawaii. MonteCristo, give me a past tense verb.
Well, it's imp, it's twitch, it's ambushed.
All right, so imp, kawaii, ambush. Let's see. We'll take those, we're going to plug them into our League Mad Libs. In this case, we'll end up with something that looks like this. Wow, that play from imp was kawaii. He totally ambushed the other team. I'm not really sure what that means. All right, earlier this week, we tweeted out on @LOL Esports and asked you for a team name from Group A and 2 verbs. And here's the sentence that you were unwittingly constructing. Team name better verb this group or they'll verb all the way home. And we're actually going to fill in our favorite responses to the sentence, and it reads something like this. From @Sam Chamison, he wrote, Samsung White better Shrek this group or they'll sob uncontrollably all the way home.
Shrek is love.
Shrek is life.
I think if they Shrek, they could rename themselves to Samsung Green. Bowling Giant wrote, Samsung White better kill this group or they'll feed all the way home. That's pretty much how that works, yeah.
Yeah, well, keep sending those to us and be sure to use that hashtag Worlds Preview so you can all play along.
And of course, keep it clean, or at least relatively. We are still PG-13 up in this preview show.
All right, now for a little bit of a local flavor, and I mean that quite literally, former pro player and Season 2 world champion Mistake takes us on a tour through Taipei's culinary scene.
很多人对于台湾的第一印象就是有很多美味的小吃。今天我来到台北宁夏夜市，要为大家介绍当地的夜市文化，以及要让大家看看夜市里面到底有什么美味的好吃。走，跟着我们一起去看。这就是我刚刚点的大肠面线跟臭豆腐。 然后这个大肠面线呢是台湾特有的小吃，在台湾是非常传统的美食。它里面是有猪大肠，这很多外国朋友可能不大敢尝试，可是台湾人非常的爱。那它吃起来的口感非常的棒，然后很多人会把它当早餐。那这个是很多国外朋友不大敢尝试的臭豆腐，它是英文名字我记得是 Stinky Tofu， 那它是油炸比较。 泡过水的豆腐，然后闻起来会有一点点臭，可是其实吃起来真的非常棒。然后搭配着台湾的泡菜，跟韩国的泡菜不大一样，搭配起来真的是非常的好吃。我们今天这是要来吃蚵仔煎，蚵仔煎是只有台湾才有的在地美食，然后它是用蚵仔配上蛋，然后以及青菜，搭配一些芡水，然后煎成双面金黄酥脆，然后很多外国朋友都一定会来尝试看看。
蚵仔煎、虾仁煎、这是虾仁煎，这是蚵仔煎。
谢谢。台湾的蚵仔煎都会现做的。 所以都会是热乎乎的。你可以看到这蚵仔很多，都是蚵仔。通常我们会这样子拉上一点，然后沾酱料，直接就一口。这是我刚刚买的猪血糕，然后它是台湾在地的小吃，虽然颜色看起来有点恐怖啊。 听朋友讲说，它吃起来的味道像，吃起来的口感像cheese蛋糕，只是里面是糯米跟猪血。其实我也没有吃过啊，所以我在这边就要先上第一次了。我来尝试看看。还是给你们吃吧。 盐酥鸡也是台湾非常有名的美食，然后呢，它是使用很多新鲜的食材，然后去油炸，配上九层塔，然后可能再配上一些辣椒以及蒜头。其实它跟美国的炸鸡很像，然后只是会炸了各种不同的材料。台湾人通常会配啤酒啊、饮料来吃。讲着讲着我就渴了，我们一起去找点喝的吧。
欢迎光临。
我要一杯波霸奶茶。
好，波霸奶茶，大杯的吗？
大杯。
好，冰块甜度要不要调整？
半糖少冰。今天品尝完了这么多台湾道地的美食，这次来台湾的朋友们，除了世界赛以外，别忘了来体验道地的台湾小吃哦。See you guys， 拜拜。
Well, now I'm both hungry and jealous. Everybody enjoying themselves out in Taipei. Right, let's move along. 2014 World Championship is heading to Korea for the quarterfinals and beyond. I think it only seems fitting to embrace some of the Korean culture and learn some of the language. It is now time for the 2014 World's Preview Show, World Championship League of Legends Korean Phrase of the Day, with today's special guest star, Counter Logic Gaming's top laner and Korean enthusiast, Seraph. Today's phrase is, can I get a gank in the bot lane? Name is more fed than a Poro in ARAM. Seraph, take it away.
Hey, 퀵샷. easy. 남해가 아람의 포로보다 더 흥하고 있는데 바텀 갱 좀 부탁드려요.
Yeah, that wasn't easy. Thank you, Seraph. I'm going to have to work on my pronunciation a lot because I suck at Korean. Now that we are slightly more culturally educated, let's take a look at the teams in Group B, or what was formerly known as Group B, because we're turning to your nicknames from Twitter once again.
And of course, thank you guys for sending so many. The majority of you have noticed the same thing that TSM did, which was finally the absence of a Korean team in this group. And that prompted a few of you to suggest that this was a very lucky group, despite the fact that he's not on Royal Club anymore. Although one of my personal favorites was Group B should be Lord's group, because they'll never beat Royal.
No. Dipping back into Monty's Twitter feed, I see you gave a shout out to Twitch chat once more by calling this group Failfish. Any particular reason?
Yeah, that's the old facepalm. You know, this group is probably not the most competitive group in terms of as we run deeper into the tournament. There's a lot of parity in this group early on. It's difficult to tell who's going to get out. In fact, pretty much any one of these four teams can theoretically get out of this group. But any team is going to lose in the quarters here. So we're going to see a lot of face palming. We're going to see a lot of face palming from the analysts in this group.
Strong words indeed. For me, the most appropriate nickname for this group actually came from our very own Jat during the reveal show, which is the Veterans, because all four of these teams have actually been to Worlds before.
And plenty of you actually did suggest that name yourself, although the first of you to agree with Jat was at BrettVZ, and I'm sure Jat would love to thank you for that himself.
I will thank you too. Now that we've had some fun, it is time to actually check out these veteran teams in Group B, starting with the #1 North American LCS seed, it's Team Solo Mid. And the #1 team from the GPL region is the Taipei Assassins.
We're also adding the #2 team from China's LPL, Starhorn Royal Club, and the #3 team from the European LCS, SK Gaming.
All right, let's actually zoom in for a closer look at Group B, and we're going to be starting things off with SK Gaming. SK overhauled their roster coming into the 2014 season after placing 2nd in spring and 3rd in summer. SK has gone from not making Worlds last year to being a potential dark horse in their group, depending on how well they perform. Unfortunately, that potential took a serious hit on Wednesday when Svenskeren was suspended. The suspension on Svenskeren will be for SK's first 3 World Championship games, and he has also been fined $2,500 for being racially insensitive on the Taiwanese server. This is not the first time that Svenskeren has been warned about abusive interactions with players and fans, and his last formal warning was back in July. SK Gaming's substitute for the first 3 games is going to be Gilius, and the last time we saw him was when he was playing for the Unicorns of Love, the challenger team that recently defeated Millennium in the spring promotion tournament, and it's somebody that you've commented on and spectated for many months this year.
Yeah, so Gilius is a pretty good player, certainly. The difficulty, though, is that his style is very different from Svenskeren's. Of course, playing with a new player in general is always going to be very difficult, especially someone who's quite good like Svenskeren. The different style is likely to be a hindrance, but sometimes new players just click, and there's that weird chance that works out well for SK suddenly. This means SK Gaming's lineup is going to look like this for the first 3 games. In the jungle is going to be Gilius, in the mid lane is Jesses, supporting is N-rated, AD carry Candy Panda, and top laner Freddy122.
All right, Monty, coming into today's show, you actually had SK Gaming as one of your favorites to make it out into the quarterfinals. How much has Svenskeren's actions affected his team's chances, in your opinion?
Quite a lot. in fact. I mean, they're not coming in with a lot of scrim time or any at all potentially with Gilius. And it's unfortunate because if we look at this team and the European playoffs, I think this was a very strong team. They really gave Alliance a run for their money in a way that nobody else did during those playoffs. And for me, they were really the second best team coming out of Europe, even though they couldn't take the second seed due to being paired with Alliance in the semifinals. So I think they're quite good. I was excited to watch them. Now I think they are probably going to take last in the group.
Yeah, I felt the same. Krepo, can I just get you to comment on SK losing Sven Skjeren? These are players that you've known for a long period of time. How much does it mess with your gel to lose that man?
I mean, we have had to switch players throughout this season, and it's definitely really hard to just get that vibe, get the same people on the same page immediately, and then in such a big event for Gilius, who started in Challenger scene, made it into LCS, hasn't played it, and immediately has to go to Worlds. That's going to be a tough blow. However, whenever I tune into the Challenger scene, I always liked what he was doing. He was an active player, had a good sense of understanding of the game, and he had good mechanics. So I hope he performs.
Well, we'll see if it does. Definitely for SK's chances. All right, up next, it is the GPL's Taipei Assassins. The Taipei Assassins won the Season 2 World Championship, surprising everyone with a phenomenal performance. This surprise was actually equaled by TPA's inability to qualify for Worlds last year. Over the last 2 years, TPA has struggled to find a consistently strong roster, but they do seem to have found a recipe for success in their current 6-man squad. They blasted through the winter, spring, and summer splits of the GPL, earning the #1 seed from their region.
And we actually saw this team play at the Paris All-Star Invitational back in May. But when they played there, Wins had just joined the roster as their junglers a couple of weeks ago. So this team specifically has gotten a lot better since then. And it's something we're going to actually watch how well Wins actually synergizes with that roster. Let's check out the starting lineup. In the top lane is Achi. In the mid lane is Morning, or maybe Chawi if they sub him out. Supporting is Jay. AD carry is BB, and jungle is Wins.
Yeah, and just to expand on that mid lane point, both Chawi and Morning have played in their regular season, so it is a strategy this team may employ. I want to ask more about Wins, and I want to ask Monte your opinion because I know you know him quite well.
Yeah, he's a veteran, so he's got a lot of experience on the world stage from last year. Well, not a lot, a little bit. He did only play one best of 3, but he looked good, and he's only developed since then. And he always occupies a space kind of in the middle of the challenger ladder in Korea. He's known for his Lee Sin play. And moreover, he's now getting coached. Another thing that we really need to talk about is that one of the former coaches from the Najin organization in Korea has moved over to the Taipei Assassins. And we've seen them improve dramatically under his tutelage. And man, they look good in the GPL finals. Clean sweep.
Yeah, they definitely are looking good. I keep talking about AD carries, and every time I do, it's DoubleLift I throw them to. BB, AD carry, go.
Well, CLG did a boot camp in Korea, and I had the pleasure of practicing against BB and Jay. And I can tell you from first-hand experience that I would be very surprised if he had a good time in lane in this group. Honestly, he's not a very strong player in lane. He's more of a hyper carry. He loves to farm. He loves to do the double lift and split push solo on AD carries until he's strong enough for team fight. But really, his laning phase to me seemed incredibly weak. So that's just something to look out for.
I sincerely hope he's learned from the double lift and not going to make the same mistakes. Right, let's move on. The next team in Group B is China's Star Horn Royal Club. Many of you will remember Royal Club as the team who made it to the final match in Worlds last year before being beaten by SK Telecom T1K. This, however, is almost an entirely different team.
It really is. The new players are going to include 2 Korean former stars, including jungler Insec. And this is a new lineup that has actually looked pretty good. They took second place in the LPL regional final to qualify for that return trip to Worlds. Let's take a look at the total starting lineup here. In the jungle is Insec. The AD carry is UZI, that's what we're calling him here. The support is going to be Zero. The mid lane is Korn, and the top laner is Cola.
Yeah, it's very strong lineup. Many players remember Uzi from last year. He has stated quite clearly it's UZI, and AD carry, it's DoubleLift. I'm going to ask Chinese AD carry, UZI. What do you think?
So he blew everyone's minds last year at Worlds. I mean, he made these ridiculous plays. His mechanics were spot on, but his biggest weakness in the LPL has been his inconsistency. This guy is not afraid to jump in 1v5, and sometimes it works out, and he escapes with 10% HP in situations where other AD carries would have just died. But he is a big risk taker, and that's a good and a bad thing for his team.
Yeah, I mean, I look at UZI and I see that playmaking possibility, and in a way, his style perfectly works with Insec, their jungler, because these are both guys that are action first, think later, right? And that's why Insec, he fell off in Korea. His mechanics are still great. He's very aggressive, but he overextends. He gets ahead of his team. But when he's with another player who does that as well, it almost works because they can force so many skirmishes around the map that they often catch teams off guard.
And this is a team I actually have my eye on a lot as well because they could just be so darn good. The problem is getting everyone onto the same page. They have to play in English together, which is none of the players' main language, right? Like, if this team could learn to play as a unit of 5, they would be ludicrously incredible.
Yeah, there's one thing that's interesting, though. If you contrast them to OMG, they are both very aggressive, both in your face, when you see which one can learn the most between their regional qualifiers and now the world stage. Now, with that, it brings us to the final team in the group, North America's Team Solo Mid. TSM had a dramatic finish to the summer playoffs, beating their rivals Cloud9 for the first time ever to take the #1 North American seed back. And they are certainly no strangers to the world stage. This marks their 4th appearance at the World Championship, and this time, more than ever, TSM actually has the ability to do well.
Yeah, I think this is the best roster TSM have actually ever put together now. The individual skill level is really high on this group of 5. So they kind of brought in new players at the beginning of the year. They've expanded that support staff as well with Coach Loco Doko. And for the first time in a year and a half, they're, as you said, back to being the #1 team in North America. So this is a roster that could go far here. Let's check out the starting roster, though. On the jungle is Amazing. In the top lane is Dyrus. In the mid lane is Bjergsen. At AD carry is Wild Turtle. And supporting is Lustboy.
Yeah, now both Krepo, you and DoubleLift have played against this team all season long. Krepo, I want to ask your opinion in the support role on Lustboy. He seems to have transformed that duo lane with Wild Turtle.
I just think Lustboy is a really solid player. I think his laning is not his strong point, but he's solid enough to go toe-to-toe with a lot of other people. But I just like what he brings in terms of vision control. He's very calm. He rarely gets caught out and just is a very methodical player. When you watch TSM play and when they rotate around the map, Lustboy will often be leading the charge. I don't know if he's calling them, but he definitely knows first where to go, and he just does that immediately. No hesitation, and just a super solid player.
Yeah, definitely seems to be performing well. DoubleLift, anything to add on the rest of the squad? Maybe looking at Bjergsen as really their all-star player at the moment.
Yeah, I think when a point of contention when you're watching a game is something to talk about is when somebody goes even against Bjergsen. That's something that's interesting about the game. That is a big problem because Bjergsen is just a monster. He's unrivaled in North America. This guy almost always solo kills his lane, if not just consistently pressures them. And the thing to note about Bjergsen is he will break the opponent mid laner. There will be times early in the series, or maybe the first game he's up against someone, he goes even. Then as it goes further and further across the tournament, he just essentially destroys them, picks them apart.
I definitely agree that Bjergsen is a very strong individual player. I still have to call into question TSM's shot calling a little bit, just because I know it's not a role Bjergsen really loves, but it's the one he's kind of been forced to embrace a little bit. So his 1v1s are still very strong, but TSM, I think, are going to have a really hard time keeping up strategically with some of the teams in this tournament.
Well, we'll have to see. They learned a lot at the North American playoffs. We are actually going to turn things over to the mind of MonteCristo once again, as he highlights 4 players in the laning phase.
Thanks again, Quick Shot. When you look at the lineup of talent on these 4 teams, it should really come as no surprise that the matches in this group, just like in Group A, will rely on the AD carries. So let's take a quick look at the 4 ADCs in Group B. For SK Gaming, we'll start off with Candy Panda. He is one of the most experienced ADCs in Europe, and he also brings experience with him from his World Championship appearance in Season 1. Team Solo Mid's Wild Turtle is next. He's one of the most unpredictable ADCs in North America. His performance at Worlds last year proved that he is one of the strongest players for TSM. For Starhorn Royal Club, Zuziai, he's back again. He's one of the best ADCs in China. He's one of the top in the world, and he rivals Name, but more as a playmaking ADC. You'll probably remember him from his performance last year at Worlds, where he nearly carried the team all the way to a title. And finally, the Taipei Assassins have Bibi, who is the only returning member from the team that won the World Championship in Season 2. He posted huge numbers for TPA this year, winning the GPL and bringing them to Worlds. Let's talk a little bit about ranking. If you rank the ADCs coming into this group, here's how I think they measure up. Coming in at number 4, it's going to be Wild Turtle. At the World Championship last year, he was one of, if not TSM's biggest asset. but his most recent playoff run has been inconsistent. His laning phase has been poor, his team fighting has been hit or miss, and while the rest of his teammates have really risen to the occasion, he's stayed a little bit behind. Coming in at number 3, I've got Candy Panda. Candy Panda is a veteran player who's looking to improve his performance from Worlds in Season 1, where he fell out of groups. He's pretty strong in Europe, but he is a bit behind the other 2 ADCs in this group, who are both former world finalists and 1 world champion. World champion's coming in at number 2. It's BB. This is his return to the world stage for the first time since he won in Season 2. TPA right now is focused on getting him ahead. Like DoubleLift says, he may not have the stronger laning phase, but he does play hyper carries, and they do rely on him significantly in the late game. Now, number 1, it's got to be UZI. UZI has a long list of accomplishments, including his crazy Vayne mechanics from last year's appearance at Worlds. With any luck, we'll see his aggressive outplays this year, and if we're not seeing those outplays, we're probably going to see him fast pushing on Caitlyn. So that's the laning phase for Group B, and that means we'll be watching the bottom lane a lot in Taipei. Quick shot, back to you.
Thank you very much, Monty. Make sure you catch that Korean hype train on the way back. Now, it is time to hear from a player who's made it all 4 World Championships, as Riv caught up with TSM's Dyrus regarding their chances in Group B.
What's up, League fans? Rivington here with Dyrus atop the Shangri-La Far East Plaza. Absolutely gorgeous here in Taipei, Taiwan. Got the chance here to sit down with Dyrus and talk a little bit about Worlds, and I want to start first with the victory at PAX. What did it mean to you to take down Cloud9 and get the LCS title in your personal accomplishments?
Normally it wouldn't be as high, but every game was so close fought that it was well earned. It was a really hard fought battle through every single match, and it was very close every single game, and we finally made it.
Finally made it, and you for a 4th time now. What's different about this year that compares to the rest? What can you kind of take out of this and bring to this Worlds?
Well, this year a different roster every single time. Except me, I've been here. Personally, it just gets better every year because it isn't really about the prize pool. It isn't really about well, it is about winning or losing, but every single year, more and more fan interaction comes to the scene, and it becomes more and more exciting to, perform for the fans.
Right on. So a lot of people feel that you guys kind of got a favorable group draw. How do you feel about it?
In my opinion, we've gotten maybe the first or second best group we could get possible. Of course, that doesn't mean it's a free ticket to Worlds. In best of ones, out of 2 matches per each team, anyone can win. And if we just slip up that one game, if we go under pressure, even if we are favored to get out of our groups, it's really, really easy to not get out of groups.
You guys kind of got a little recognition and praises sung by Samsung Blue Acorn on social media that says, you guys were the hardest team to face. Are there any teams that you are actually looking forward to facing in Worlds?
Personally, I'm looking forward to playing against every single one, whether they're good or not as good as the other teams. They're really, really fun to play against. I feel very, very confident in what we've been doing, and as long as we play to our best and did our best and we still lose, then that's how far we got. And if we win, then we all know what's going to happen.
So follow up on that, is there any player you would like to specifically face in this Worlds matchup?
Out of all the top laners I really respect so far is Going. And last year by playing against him at Impact, they just showed me a top lane level of mechanics of where, I just wasn't there yet. And this year I want to see how far I've gotten to compare up to them.
And I want to step back real quick, back to PAX before our final question. What was the Dyrus we saw at PAX? It's definitely a different Dyrus, a very emotional and powerful Dyrus. Will we see that here at Worlds?
In my opinion, the emotions kind of get in the way because when I did that at PAX, it ruins my team's concentration and what we need to do next. It's going to be more serious and more strict on myself, but I'm going to be looking to play as strongly as I did as PAX.
All right, and Dyrus, what would it mean to you to win Worlds?
It would mean that the last 3 times I didn't make it, that as long as I put my mind to it and as long as my teammates, kept doing what they were doing and I just stepped up to my teammates' level, then it would mean everything. It would mean I'm giving the win to myself, to my fans, to North America, and just everyone in general.
Thank you very much for that, Riv and Dyrus, and I'm sure picking up those wins will mean a lot to the TSM fans as well, but you need to pick those wins up. Winning gets you out of groups. We've dissected Group B. I want to ask the panel, which two teams will be advancing from Group B to take place in the quarterfinals in Busan, Korea? I'm going to start with Krepo. Formerly of the European Union, you turned to apple pie, you turned to freedom. Are you a believer in TSM or not?
Last year, I put all my hopes for Royal Lucian. It didn't end up happening, so I'm going TSM all the way this year. I think actually they have a chance of placing first in their group, with a close second being Royal Club. It might be the other way around. I'm sure Monte disagrees with me here. But yeah, something tells me, I have this gut feeling that TSM is going to show up and place first.
Well, it's going to be interesting. Double, if you've played against them even longer than Krepo has, give me your opinion, your top two, who's getting out of groups?
Definitely Starhorn Royal Club as the first. They're just the strongest team in the group to me. They come from China, a very aggressive region. Their team fighting is immaculate. They have UZI, like, this guy is a monster. He's going to crush everyone bottom lane. And then number two, Taipei Assassins. Even though this group doesn't have a Korean team, to me, they're like the honorary Koreans because they scrim constantly against Korean teams. They play in the fastest region with the lowest game time. That means these guys are super objective focused, and it'll catch everyone off guard. Just don't underestimate TPA. In my opinion, they're going to make it out of the groups.
So no faith at all in TSM. You don't think that they're going to show up and, take them out?
It's close between TPA and TSM, but I have to say, TPA's playstyle to me inherently counters TSM's.
A CLG member suddenly not believing in TSM.
All right, let's talk a little bit more. MonteCristo, who is your top two teams? Does TSM feature? I know you liked SK before the incident.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is that SK doesn't have that same scrim practice that they've had in Korea with their normal jungler Svenskeren, so any substitute situation is really going to knock them down the standings. I got them at number 4. Number 1, I'm taking Starhorn Royal Club. This is a team that has, with UZI, has a lot of international experience. He stepped up his game last year, and for me, the difference between Starhorn and TSM is that they kind of target the weak point in Wild Turtle's laning phase. I see UZI kind of getting huge out of the lane here, and as much as TSM has stepped it up with their other members, I think they're just not going to be used to the heavy, aggressive, skirmishing style of Royal. There aren't that many teams that play like they do, and I think they'll have an edge.
Yeah, between the rest of the table, TSM, TPA, Royal Club, is there any differences on your side? Which two are getting out?
No, for me, number 1, definitely Starhorn Royal Club. UZI is basically just going to have a farm lane, both of minions and champions down there. It's going to be, honestly, I feel pretty free for him, and he can carry his team to victory almost single-handedly here. The number 2 team for me, though, is Team Solomid. I think they're actually quite strong individually across the board, which is good for them. Taipei Assassins, to me, could finish somewhere between first and third. Like, maybe they could upset the entire group. The problem is their region is so shallow. It's like they have HQ and then a bunch of like CLGs. Like, most of the teams that they face are not really big tests. And so you say like they have these really fast game times, but like that doesn't necessarily mean anything for TPA here. So I don't know how strong they necessarily are. But maybe they're actually incredible and maybe they finish number 1. But to me, it's SHRC number 1, TSM number 2, TPA number 3.
All right, well, first off, I'm going to get you back for that at some point. And second of all, I'm going to counter your argument by saying TPA has been scrimming Korean teams for a whole year. North American teams can only dream of going to Korea and kind of boot camping for a couple weeks, but these guys practice against Koreans all year.
Yeah, but we saw how well Korean scrims turned out, right?
Yeah, definitely worked out.
Well, we can't expect anything from the other Korean boot camps, can we, right before Worlds?
Let's move this one along. And even though we have the president of Puntown with us, we're going to turn to you for a bit of wacky wordplay. It's time once more for the 2014 World Championship preview show, Mad Libs. By now, you know the drill. This is where we take your submissions on Twitter, drop them into a sentence that none of you guys have seen, and hopefully we end up with something funny.
That's how I do puns. Remember that earlier we revealed the sentence to you guys? This team name better verb this group, or they will verb all the way home. And these were our favorite responses for Group B. At Fictitious Panda tweeted, TSM better hop this group, or they'll flop all the way home.
A few of our analysts said they could do that. Our second one also comes from a TSM fan, and says from @Coco5, says TSM better eat this group, or they'll sleep all the way home. That is how you get fed.
It's true, although the weird thing is if you eat, you tend to get sleepy afterwards, so I don't know, we're going to have to see. But I'm, of course, starting to see a trend here because our next tweet is also about TSM. @DJ Grizzy wrote, TSM better one-erd this group or they'll be capping all the way home.
Definitely not words. Now, just because your answer didn't make air this time, don't worry, we will be playing again next week with a brand new sentence.
It's going to be great. So be sure to follow at LOL Esports on Twitter and keep your eye out for the next round of World Championship Mad Libs.
Yeah, and with the very first stage of Worlds kicking off soon, let's take a look at the schedule. There are 24 games heading your way as Groups A and B compete in Taiwan, beginning with a showdown between Edward Gaming and Samsung White. And we'll end the first day with Starhorn Royal Club taking on Team Solo Mid.
It's going to be some great games, but Friday's matches will also come the day after with TPA versus SK Gaming at the beginning, and they're going to end with Edward Gaming going up against AHQ Esports Club.
Yeah, day 3 will see TPA taking on TSM, and our analyst predicted that one of those two teams will join Royal Club in the quarterfinals. This might be the match that determines it.
It'll be great, and of course that same match that began the Taipei group stage will end it as Samsung White faces Edward Gaming once again. And remember, those matches all start at 5 p.m. local time, which is 11 a.m. Central European Summer Time and 2 a.m. Pacific.
So we have seen the schedule, we have talked about the teams. I very quickly want to go down the line and find out which head-to-head matchup are you most excited for in this stage and why.
Taipei Assassins versus Team Solo Mid. I think the winner is going to the quarterfinals, and that's pretty darn important.
Yeah, big game.
Team Solo Mid against Royal Club. I'm either going to look really smart or really stupid. And I hope it's the former.
For me, it's EDG versus Samsung White. It's the best team in China versus potentially the best team in Korea, and it's just the battle of the two Goliaths.
Yeah, I got to agree with Peter here. I got to take EDG versus White as well. I think if any team has a legitimate shot at dethroning the Koreans in this tournament, it's EDG, and it begins now.
All right, well, we're nearly ready to close things out, but we can't leave without hearing from Riv and Jet once more.
Thanks, Trevor. And this is the venue, the National Taiwan University Sports Center, where 8 of the best teams from around the world will be competing to get out of the group stages on Thursday.
And as you can see, there's still plenty going on here. Riv and I actually have to head inside for rehearsal because the World Championship starts in about 12 hours.
That's right, lots to do, so take care, guys. We'll see you on Thursday.
Let's go.
Thank you guys very much. We will see you for day 1 of the 2014 World Championship, which kicks off in roughly 12 hours.
So unless people are watching the special encore presentation of this show, in which case we're about 5 minutes away from the first game. So one of the two.
Yeah, well, whether you are watching during our initial airing or the second presentation, that about does it for the Group Stage 1 Worlds Preview Show. But before we go, we are very excited to debut the brand new 2014 World Championship Anthem. It's a collaboration between Riot's music team and Imagine Dragons. Our preview show's last hit will now be your first hit of Worlds, and here it is, the premiere of Warriors.